This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. Did we have an agenda for today written down or not?
The agenda is the same agenda as the last meeting. There's a copy of it over here.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll call to order. Pledge of allegiance first, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll take the roll call. Steve McNamee.
Steve's here. Yes.
Dan Truckee.
Here.
Russell Kish. Annalise. And Kevin Baird.
Present.
All right, you have a quorum.
All right. Approval of the agenda. So we're going to speak on the district management services this morning. The extension for manager's contract. What else? Is there anything else that's not? Can we only speak about things that are on this agenda?
Well, the other item, Mr. Chairman, is the consideration of presentations from other firms, district management services, and the board meeting was continued for this purpose.
Yes.
If there are items that have come up in between,
Yes,
that the board wishes to add, they can. And you need to give the public an opportunity to speak on that.
Okay.
Again, it depends upon the nature. It's really subject to the issue.
well, it sounds like Doral is going to be here about 9:30.
Okay, so that would be under 13, A2 and A3. Because that involves presentation consideration.
Right.
So that is already included.
Gotcha.
I would say it's already included.
So basically, those are the only couple things we're going to work on today then? Anybody else have any comments on that?
If I can be excused for a minute to go to my car, get my pens. I was talking to you, I forgot my pens. No, I've got a couple.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back, I apologize.
Yep, no problem. Is there any audience comments today? On the agenda items? Go ahead.
Peggy Kozlowski. I just wanted to know, did you meet with the people that we're having that lawsuit with? Did you ever meet with them?
No.
You haven't met with them yet?
No. We'll have to ask Tony. He was going to set that up. No,
Okay.
we haven't. Did you get her name?
Yes,
Okay.
Peggy Kozlowski.
Yep. Approval of the meeting minutes. We already did that, right?
Yeah, all those items were done at the last meeting.
Happy Audible 302. Just wanted to let you know, you don't have to worry about the meter cover. I called Mitch that day. He was fixed the next day.
That's Mitch. Please, Ron.
Kathy, to respond on that, I was working with Robert Soto. He had informed me they weren't irrigation.
No, I knew that.
Right, and then the irrigation, once we discovered it wasn't irrigation covers, then we called Mitch's one, he said they were already done. So.
I knew it wasn't irrigation because there's no way they could get it. It wasn't irrigation. But anyway, it's fixed.
Frank, did you have any audience comments today? Okay,
I do.
go.
I'm Lisa Sager.
Can you come up, Lisa, please?
Well, the only thing I wanted to say is,
The reason why is that Mr. Dudek and the manager recording.
Yes.
They want to get all your comments.
sure, I'm Lisa Sager. I live at 166. The only thing I wanted to say is when we're in the audience, it would be great if people weren't talking while you guys are talking because it's very hard. Last time I was here, people were talking and you couldn't hear. You got half the audience talking, then you guys are talking like, so it would just be nice that if
I know everybody likes to sit in the background, but man, I'd love it if you guys would move up.
Yep.
I think it'd be, come on, Ron. Sorry we woke you up.
All right, wait.
Anyway. So now
The rest.
So I do have an audience comment.
Okay.
Thank you. Your name, please. Frank, DK Drive. I simply wanted to mention on the subject of the RFQ for the engineer, if that contract, like the other contract, requires a 30-day notice or a 60-day notice, there were like 8, 9, 10 items in the last meeting that were mentioned, and none of them were priced. And I simply wanted to commend again your consideration of that situation. Again, for the 5th time. That fine company has a 20-year track record of institutional knowledge. I think it would be almost impossible for someone, another company, to outperform them given that record. But I do think 20 years is a long time to go without competing it, and I wanted to commend that be done. Thank you.
Cal sent us an RFQ paperwork, right? So do we want to send that out to firms? I know that the 2 people who are wanting to be our managers have got some ideas on who they would like to address, and we can actually talk to them when he's here today. Okay.
Yeah, and on that point, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that I think the way it was left, and I could stand to be corrected, was that Cal had outlined some concepts for the scope of the RFQ to go out.
Okay.
But they've never been on an agenda for the board to come to an agreement as to the contents of the RFQ. That's my recollection.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we can have that item on the next board meeting in conjunction with 2 things. One, the board can see the scope, concept of the RFQ, and also there'd be a conversation with the other parties, the new district management firm, as to how they recommend it. So I think at that point in time, it'd be more appropriate to get the scope, get the direction to the manager as to what to put in the scope and how to put the RFQ out.
So pick the management company today and then work on the RFQs at the February meeting.
That's what I would suggest.
I agree with you. How about you?
And the way it works for engineering services, it's called Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, that compensation is not a factor in the qualification.
Right.
It's a qualifications-based process. Parties submit their qualifications. Those firms are ranked. The ranking then comes to the board then determines the ranking and then negotiates with the top ranked firm. If compensation is not agreed upon with the top ranked firm, or the terms aren't agreed upon, you go to the next one. That's how it works.
Right.
It's different than most other boards. It's not compensation qualifying.
How does the board feel about it?
Yep.
Well, I want to know, do we have to have an engineer lined up, or can we have one, retained as Kieran's need?
You do, but you still need to go through that process to engage
Has to
in
be
that.
I mean, we can't just, say we go for the tanks, right? We can't just go at that time if our county engineer doesn't do the specs, then we hire somebody.
You could, but in the interim, you have other work that you may want to have an engineer review perform that would not be capable of being performed unless you have a district engineer on a continuing contract.
And I'm thinking too, as long as along that lines, we want to get 3 bids for engineering proposals. And then we pick one of those, and that doesn't mean that we authorize them to do work. We go from there.
Correct, and what you also can do is, if you wish to, and that could be in the scope and in agreement with the engineer that you choose as your district engineer, say that the district reserves the right to solicit proposals from other engineering firms on capital improvement projects or other projects down the road, so that you would have the district engineer, but that doesn't mean they would be the engineer to do any capital improvement plans down the road. You still reserve that ability to solicit those for specific projects.
Yeah, so you don't always have to use your own. You can go outside.
Correct, and
We
that
just
could be
did
in the
that.
scope, and that could be in the agreement also.
Mm-hmm.
So that could address your issue, Mr. Kish. You have somebody on board for necessary day-to-day things, or large capital projects, you still retain the right to solicit proposals.
They just did that recently on, I believe the Sunset K, where they're the easement that goes on that cross street that goes next to Terry's house there that they wanted to change. We hired an outside firm other than our engineer to do the paperwork on that. It's $1,600. So it wasn't Old Montez that did it. It went through them though. I don't know if they took a markup on that or not. I don't know.
Okay.
And again, one other aspect of it too, when we get into the discussion of the engineering services, the statute says that if you do a planning or studying activity for under $35,000, you do not need to participate, do not need to go to that CCNA process. Or if you have a construction project of a certain dollar amount, you don't need to. So again, depending upon any future scope of work, whether you need to do a formal competitive process or less formal process, it all depends on the scope.
Okay. Now, I just got the invoices just recently after the last meeting, and I've had a chance to go through those. How does the board want to act on these invoices? Do we want to, as a board, peruse these things? Or how do you want to handle it?
I would recommend that, well, you're the one going through them,
Yeah.
and I see you have some highlighted,
Mhm.
right? So if you would bring the ones in question that you know, we might take action against or something,
Okay.
I would say bring those to the board.
Okay, well, what I'm looking at, the first one here is the attorney's bills. And I pulled out the ones that have to do with parcel 13, you know, the billing for that. And I'm sure you've probably already told me this, but I've probably forgotten. Can work that's being done for them be billed to them?
I'll double check that. I don't believe so, but I will double check that.
Okay. Oh, the other thing is, what was the other question?
Not built to the request for reimbursement, not built to, because, you know, it's whether or not the district can request reimbursement for the fees. That's for that one. I'll look at that. I apologize. I'll have that answer.
Okay, okay. So there was that.
And I think engineering fees also, you were asked about that too. Correct.
Yes.
I'll check.
So, the lawsuit with PrepMac, there was another $1,900 last month. And then that lawsuit that I had, there's another $118 on that, which I'm kind of questioning because the work was done at 12/1 and 12/6. But like a day or two after I was elected, that was dropped.
No, yeah. It took a while.
Okay.
Before we could get Mr. DeCosta to agree to stipulation dismissal.
Oh, really?
It took a few days, yeah.
Okay, but I haven't heard.
I'll share the emails with you if you wish.
No, I'll believe you. Okay, good enough. Whole Montez, the last meeting cost us $1,300 for him to attend. There was money in here again for him doing work on parcel 13. There was a $1,600 survey for that, changing the easements. And now, while we've got the time, should we discuss that? I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there was an easement that was on the original plans that I got here, and it showed the drainage going between Terry O'Connell's house and that corner house, but it didn't actually get put where the easement showed on the plans. It got put on his lot, which he owns 2 of those lots, so it's actually going through the middle of his lot, as well as the opposite side of the road. It's going on a different lot. Now, we spent $1,600 to come up with drawings and whatnot to change the easement from where it is on the plat to, so it would take it off her property and the next door neighbor's property, or that would take it off of hers.
Yeah, I don't know if it took it off, but what primarily was for was to describe the easement where the pipe, where the drainage pipe actually moved. I think that was the goal.
So I don't know, maybe you can help me with this, Terry. What were we trying to do? I mean, what were we gonna do with this?
I think we were trying to change the easement to be where it is.
Okay? What exactly do we have to do to accomplish that?
Well, I think what we needed was the engineering drawing and to contact the owner to see if he'll consent to the easement being changed.
Okay? And then who do we file that with, or who takes care of this?
the engineer.
Okay, Dave, and he's well aware of all of this? Okay.
Yeah, well, part of that also would be, granted, I think the idea was a grant of easement from those property owners in favor of the district over where the drainage facilities are actually located. And to the extent that there's a mortgage on the property, the mortgage holder would have to go to. That's what happens under Florida law. If I'm an owner of property, there's a mortgage on the property, I want to grant an easement, and if I don't get consent by the mortgage holder, when that, if I quit paying, there's a foreclosure, it wipes out.
Yeah, I remember Frank was talking about that at one time, that if they did something in their HOA, they were going to have to go to every one of their, yeah.
Depending on each, yeah. But that's, so I guess, Chris, perhaps the direction might be to Dave and or Dale or Chris and the income. How often you get the status, at least get a status report about where that sits. You know, I can't recall exactly, it's been a while since I saw it.
Now,
It's been about 3 weeks since the last communication on that, I think. It's my recollection.
No, more than 3 weeks.
More than 3 weeks?
this was in, the invoice was in November. So, Annalise is on drainage and whatnot. I will have, well,
You can have Chris tell her, the board, or tell Annalise at the board.
To get a hold of
discussed and designated her to contact the engineer and the property.
the thing is, on the sunshine law that we're always worried about, is there a reason why I can't just call her and say, get a hold of Dave?
That's correct, because you.
I can't?
You cannot. Really? Yeah, because that'd be, again, you're having a meeting, you're discussing business, that reasonably foresee to come from the board this evening. Can't be done.
Okay. Good to know. So we'll have Dave and Annalise look at that.
Yeah, you can have Chris Trail notify both David and Annalise about that.
What else? Invoices from the district. For utility billing here, we've got an invoice for $413. Or $477 for 2,500 envelopes. And then we've got another one for 615. So we're talking about $1,100 worth of envelopes that we just ordered. Not quite sure why we would need $1,100 of envelopes to do our last billing.
But perhaps Chris or Cal can explain. Cal, are you on the phone? Is Cal on the phone?
Yeah, Cal.
Okay. Cal, can you hear me?
Go right here. Every bill has a return envelope in it, and any unused supplies will be turned over to your new management company.
Okay.
They're yours. It's, it's nothing that we purchased for us.
Okay, so that'll be held out and transferred over to whomever.
Right.
Good to know. Thank you.
Well, on something like that, why wouldn't we get the invoice? I don't know, just a list of how you got it. QuickBooks, oh, okay.
GoDaddy, we evidently pay them once a month. It's like there's 4 of them. Paper.
Actually, it's not monthly. Well, maybe it is. Chris, could you explain that, please, the GoDaddy bill?
Yeah, the GoDaddy bill is for the board email accounts.
Yeah.
And we went to month because you're.
Yeah, it's only $7.
Right. It used to be a 2-year term.
Yeah.
We were coming up on renewal. You guys are looking for another management company, so we dropped to month.
Yeah, so it's 4 accounts times $7. Okay, now going to invoices for community field services. We've got an additional bill here for $458 on top of their monthly charge. And I'm looking at it here, and it's basically for 8 hours of labor. due to cutting branches, filling holes in the concrete on Union Road. Didn't we just pay a bill on that to have that done? By another company?
Yes, D&G did some filling. I don't know if these were extra, but they weren't within that contract. He's not addressing those that have already been done. The previous board, maybe even before that, but they've always had whatever maintenance. The maintenance list used to be like 1,000 items on it. And so then the board said, Chris, you take care of it. He's cheaper than any maintenance company, and he's always got a crew out here. His hourly rate is somewhere in the $40, and there's a trip charge on top of that. I think that's $44. And then there's any materials.
Right.
So that's within the, and I think they said as long as it was about $500, that was fine.
Yep, I go along with that. Now, so it's for cutting back branches, it's filling holes on Union Road, removing silt on the culverts on 41, and installing sign blades on some, our stop signs for where our streets are. And that totals up to 8 hours. Now, is this 8 hours separate from the 8 hours that he normally is supposed to come out here to do his inspections? Or is what I'm getting at is,
Yeah, that's correct. That's not, he's not doing it while he's doing the inspection. When he comes out and does the inspection, that's all he does. A lot of times if there's a timer that has to be reset on the irrigation system, little things like that he can do during his inspection, he does that at no charge. The charges that you're questioning are charges where he sends a crew out, and it's usually one man, but they send a man out and he takes care of, and he tries to spend a whole day there, knocking off the list of maintenance items that he identifies.
okay, yeah, all I was doing is trying to make sure that we weren't paying twice for the same 8 hours.
Sure.
Okay, that's all the bills. You guys want to authorize payment of these? I mean, I can, but.
I'll make a motion that we pay the bills as discussed.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So you can tell Jennifer to go forward with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Kathy Oswald. In regards to the mailings, I used to do that for a living. There's a proof that's done. Once that proof is approved and you pay for the proof, those envelopes shouldn't be $1,100. Seriously.
Well,
They should be around $500, $600 if you're lucky. Okay.
well, he's talking 2,500 each.
I know that.
That's too much?
I work for a church. We get thousands and they're $500 for printing. So I'm just saying, you might
Okay.
want to look at other printers.
Okay,
And,
well,
you know, just
Okay.
We've already been-
This is not a printing bill. That's envelopes. That supplies through, and you've got a copy of the invoice that they were purchased. It's envelopes. We don't charge you for printing of the bills. The bills are inserted in an envelope with a return envelope also inserted. They're supplies. I don't care who does it. They still got to buy the basic material. It's not a printing charge.
yeah, let's let this go because you've got the envelopes. We're paid, we just authorized the payment of the envelopes. What happens after there's a new management company in there, we'll worry about the envelopes that they buy. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Anything else as far as, okay, financing? Go ahead.
What, Mr. Druck is referring to a letter that the district received from an attorney from the district's insurance carrier that we received also at the same time. We are in the process of evaluating it as far as any opportunity to reply back on behalf of the district. So what we suggest, I mentioned that to the chairman earlier, we're in the process, in Kale's office, Chris sent me yesterday copies of all the policies from 2018 to current, to review the entire insurance policy. And some are 200 pages long with all the usual fun insurance provisions. And then we can advise the board next board meeting about a response, if appropriate. And in the meantime, what we'll suggest is we'll have one-on-one conversations with the board, not to ask for any decision we make, but just advise you as to what our legal analysis is. And then we'll have a discussion about responding to that letter. Okay. Because there are a couple of questions that come up immediately just by looking at it, and which leads to possible deliberations.
Before the meeting, I spoke to Tony and asked him about other communities he works in and what's customary when an action's brought against the CID or CDDs. And typically, whenever they're notified, that notification goes to the insurance company pronto. And that's why they're, in their letter, they're basically denying this.
Yeah, I'd rather not have any further discussion now. Wait
Okay.
until we have our full analysis. We've had some preliminary discussions. As I mentioned, one of our attorneys does insurance, used to do insurance plaintiff work, we still do insurance plaintiff work. So we had an initial conversation meeting on it yesterday, and we'll have a more detailed review and analysis.
Before I forget, the prep map thing, the four of us were gonna get together. Have you made any progress on that?
Yeah, Lenore, because she's been handling litigation primarily.
That's in your office?
Yes, you know, my partner. She was
Okay,
close to her
gotcha.
session. She has been communicating with Mr. DaCosta, sent an email out, I think, yesterday, and Mr. DaCosta said, yeah, I think it's a good idea, we'll get some dates and we'll coordinate for the four of us to get together.
Do you think that'll be soon?
We're hoping to have it soon.
Okay.
I understand.
While you're talking about that, can I see the original notification that was sent out to Premac and Alligator Boys? Who was it?
In December?
Whenever it was, the original for notification that we were going to be making communication. Can I see that
Yeah,
original?
what Cal has, there are attachments to the lawsuit. I can send you a copy of the lawsuit.
No, I just want to see the letter. I'm interested in it.
Well, there's more than just letters, a number of items. There's a letter, there's notes in the newspaper, there's minutes, there's a number of items. I think what's helpful is to send you a number of documents.
Are you looking for the notice that Cal gave
I'd
to
rather
insurance?
not have any discussion about it.
No, it's not a notice to the insurance company. Just a notice that when I want to see how it was worded. That's all. I just wanted to read it.
Okay, what I will do is I'll send you the documents that, in my opinion, address the notice issue. Because there's more than just.
It'll have the notice in it.
There's more than just a notice. I don't want to get into a whole discussion about the litigation, the strategy.
I'm not trying to get into discussion. I just want to see the notice.
There's more than just that. If not, but it'll be part of it.
It will be there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Perfect.
That's it.
What else? Before these guys show up.
What you may want to do, and it's up to the board's discretion, and so before the other ones arrive, so the board will have some guidance as to how to proceed, is, and there may have been a change this morning, we'll find out shortly. I sent you what was provided to me by Cal with some adjustments yesterday on proposed an extension of the services agreement. I have it in a red line in clean form. If the board wishes to discuss that now and get the position of Premier District Management on that, so the board will know what position they are in when they hear those presentations.
Sure.
I have.
Might as well.
Yeah, what I have attached is a red line and clean version of each. Oh, I can pass them down. And I'll give one to Chris for the record. And the top one is the red line version. And, should have it. I take it back. You should have it. Here's a clean version. Doesn't have these down. the Premier is inclined to enter into the extension agreement as revised per the red line version and then the clean line versions attached. The board can consider that, but Cal, do you want to address the email you sent this morning to the chairman? Is he still there? So is he muted?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. Yes, I sent out a email due to a email. We initially had no problem, but I received yesterday an email from the chairman, and I've sent a response to all of the board members, including Mr. Pearson. We're really not interested in going beyond the 18th. Primarily due to the email that we received from Mr. McNamee, which I think was what he was looking for, is not to extend the contract. But each of the board members has a copy of it,
I sent it out.
of the letter that I sent. The letter with a couple email attachments. There's probably some misspelled words. I did this at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a meeting in Clearwater yesterday, but the email received kept me up a while. And so I drafted it and had to think about it. And at 7 o'clock, I think I sent it, maybe 6:30.
1 is what I have at Cal. About almost 8 o'clock.
So we have started boxing everything up. It's your website will get all of the data that we have. You own the data. We own the website, or we own the web. Yes, the website. FEMA's not in our current contract, and I think I've given everything to Mr. Truckee and the entire board last meeting. But we'll provide everything that that we can, and we've got a meeting this afternoon with FEMA, and we'll notify them that effective the 18th, that your new management company will be taking over the claim.
What's the meeting today with FEMA? What's it about?
It's a normal ongoing thing. It's all of our clients. It's a meeting to discuss what's needed, what isn't needed. I mean, it's a typical meeting. They schedule these on a regular basis.
Okay. Do you think that's something, does the board think that that's something that we should be involved in?
I have a paper. What time is that meeting today?
It's at 1 o'clock. It's in our offices, and it's about all of our communities. They're coming in, and this stage of it is the reporting of the damages inventory. So it's about the spreadsheet and how to fill it out, and scheduling someone to come out and do a tour of the damaged areas on the site. And they do these meetings going forward.
Do you feel we should have someone there?
I don't think there's any board decisions that need to be made about that.
Okay. I'm just.
You're welcome to come.
Yeah, I just want us to make sure that nothing gets through the cracks on this FEMA thing, because it's going to be a bigger deal, and that's the only reason, because of what's going on.
Well, we're having the meeting in the office, and I also have a call-in number, so someone could call in or someone can come and be in the meeting.
Appreciate that. Okay.
Mr. Doral and Mr. Carter are here.
Yes.
So I guess, so Cal, you're saying that you are not going to enter into an extension of services agreement for 10 days?
That's correct. I think that the board needs to read my email that I sent this morning.
I don't think the board needs to read your email. Your decision.
No, I didn't think you would want them to.
Well, Cal, you sent it at 10 minutes to 8, and the meeting's at 8:30. So, Chairman, and the board want me to read it.
I haven't even had a chance.
There are attachments to it.
Okay.
It's board's discretion.
Okay, so, anything more on that? Anybody? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Frank, in the case, I have one quick question. Did I understand him to say that the data is ours, but they own the website?
That's what he said.
So does that mean we will not have a website?
We have to have a website in Florida law. So Chris, how will you handle that transition?
So whoever your new management company is going to hire a web host, and they will design a website for you. They can go and scrape all the data off the website, so that's all the attachments, all the PDFs, all that sort of stuff, and put it up there.
Here's the
We
concern,
will.
Chris.
I'm sorry.
If y'all are terminating as of February 18th, can it feasibly happen that all of that can happen in one day? The new management company comes in and gets it all transitioned over in one day?
In one day?
Yeah.
No.
Well, so then that's the question is, if y'all own the website, quote unquote, it should be a district owned website. Y'all own it, why can't you assign your interest to the new management company or to the district?
It's not that we don't, it's the language is wrong. It's not that you don't own the website. It's we own the intellectual data, the design of that website. And we wrote that into our agreement because that's a selling point for how we addressed the ADA compliance. You know, putting everything up in HTML and reducing the number of PDFs because that's better for screen readers. So we kept that look of the website. That's in the agreement that the board approved. But all the data, of course, is yours. The URL, the POICID, that belongs to you. So when you have a new management company, you need to address the website. They hire somebody, we transfer that URL to them, and they put their pages up with your data up.
So maybe we can get Doro when they give their presentation to let us know.
So we didn't pay for anything when you made us ADA compliant, that you didn't charge the district anything?
That's what I was gonna say.
There was a website agreement, and I can't remember what the cost of it was, but I think there was a cost associated with that.
Chris,
Cal?
the website agreement between Premier
And the district.
and the district and when was that entered into?
We've been paying $100 a month.
That was shortly after I started, so I think that was 2020.
Maybe 29.
Maybe 2019. I mean,
Let me see if I can find it in all the documents.
Frank?
As I understand it, they also would have the option at their discretion to transfer that website to you.
Yes, they have
Which
that.
would help this community tremendously and not have chaos. They could do that. I assume you own the domain name. You're paying GoDaddy to host it, correct? And so they have they're saying they paid someone to build that website. So, depending on what the new management company may come in and say, we've already got a website, we'll just transfer. But, I just think it's kind of sad that they're holding this community hostage over something they're not going to use. They could give it to you for $1. I just want to make that comment.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you. You fellows want to come up? I don't know if you want to grab a couple of chairs or if you don't feel comfortable standing, it's really up to you.
I may stand at the beginning if we're not here too long, or I'll sit next to Tony.
That's fine.
I'm sorry. Hey, Kevin, how are you, sir?
Great, how are you?
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, I looked at it yesterday as well.
Thank
You were counselor?
Yeah.
Record copy.
Yep.
Steve, you're the chairman.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. for the opportunity to be with you today. I met one of your colleagues, board members, about 2 weeks ago. She took the initiative, I guess, to check us out a little bit. Came to our office, and I understand she's traveling today. In the absence of sort of a formal RFP and not knowing exactly what your preferred format is here, I've got kind of just some overview comments about our firm in particular, some of our client-related load, and then generally the scope of work that we have. And so with that, and because my understanding is that you're all new, I'll begin with this. When Sherry and I moved to town, the Board of County Commissioners here did not own a 4-lane road. Think about that. All roads in Collier County in the end of the 1970s were 2-lane roads, and the interstate came to a dead end in Bradenton. And so when I came down here to take a job with county government, it was a very different place. And I came to work for Collier County, the county manager's office. On that particular time, I can tell you that I worked for the county for almost 20 years. I was the county's chief executive officer the last 10 years. I was the county manager. Left in '97 in order to start our business, whose core business was initially developing, and then I went back to what I really knew how to do, which was public administration. Believe it or not, special purpose government districts in Florida are 200 years old. Last year, Florida was a territory in 1822, and the territorial legislature created the Escambia Bay Highway and Ferry Act of 1822, and they appointed a district manager. In that particular case, they didn't have any taxing powers, but it did give the district manager the right and authority to use the militia to go out and conscript labor within the community. So it'd sort of be like me showing up down here with the police and conscripting the residents to go to work for free for the taxing district. And that was how taxing districts came to the state of Florida. No taxing authority, but the district manager had the right to go out and round up whoever he needed to get the job done on that particular day.
We can't still do that.
I'd have to defer to Tony to see whether he'll not do that. With that, by way of introduction, it was almost 150 years later that the first community improvement and community development districts were created. The first one in the state was the Reedy Creek Community Development District, which is now known as Walt Disney World. Walt Disney and his team from California came in the late 60s and convinced the legislature to create a special purpose community district and give them very unique powers. Shortly after that, the second one in the state was created by a company called Coral Ridge Collier Properties, which is now known as Pelican Bay. And it was done by Westinghouse Electric and a subsidiary of theirs, which was their community development company. Oddly enough, Mr. Pierce worked for that company for a period of time. So Tony and Walt Disney probably have more background in history concerning special districts than anybody in the state. So after I left the county, I ran a development company here in Southwest Florida for a couple of years. We developed a Strand in Old Cypress in North Naples. We did a sister community in Estero called Grandeza, which is across the street from Hertz Arena. Did that for a couple of years and then started this company in 1999. And we got our first CDD community the following year in 2000, which was the Laley Resort Community Development District. And I'm very, very honored to say we still have them as a client 22 years later. And obviously, boards change over time, but when we arrived there, it was still being owned and operated by the Van der Lely family from Holland, subsequently sold to Stock Development. We also managed the Pelican Marsh and Tiburon Community Development District. We had been there for 17 years, and Same sort of thing, took them through a series of bonding phases. I understand you don't have any bonded indebtedness here. We also manage the Heritage Greens Community Development District in North Naples. And in addition, I serve as the district manager for the Pelican Bay Services Division. Originally an independent district, it became a county government district. And so I've actually now worked for the county manager almost 30 years after I left, managing what is the largest community improvement district and taxing and benefit unit in Southwest Florida, over 7,000 homes there. We have been there through, this is our third series of contracts, and would hope to continue at Pelican Bay. So we have some really good clients. We have some of the smallest districts over time. We also manage the Key Marco Community Development District. We were there for 10 years. Key Marco is a unique little community halfway between Marco Island and Goodland, off to the south side of San Marco Road there. Most people drive by it, they don't realize they own the longest bridge in Marco. And when I first arrived there, I told them that. I said, I don't think you guys want to own a bridge. There's only 150 home sites here, and somehow we need to see if we can't give this bridge to the city of Marco. And we were there for 10 years. They did a very unique thing where, because of the size of the community, somewhat similar to yours, there are more people, I'm sure, that live here. But they just ran out of volunteers to serve on the board. And so they have a unique arrangement there now to where the Master Homeowners Association is sort of the managing entity on behalf of the CDD, and some other unique aspects there that I won't go into, not important. So we've been in business for, this is the beginning of our 23rd year. I do think we have some great clients and very, very long relationships. You know, Cal and I are not the big boys in this game. There are over 500 community development districts in the state now. The big firms are in Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, and even Jacksonville. And there are just hundreds of them. Our clients have always been in Southwest Florida. We have one new client up near Punta Gorda that was just created last year, Bridalwood of Arcadia Community Development District. They have not sold any bonds yet. The land is not improved. And so in total, we have always had about 5 or 6 different clients. We do pick up some nice homeowner associations. All the principals and the associates in our company are both licensed CAMs and function and work in district management affairs. We've got a total of 6 employees, 2 in accounting. We've got some on-site people. Kevin Carter is here this morning because he is our on-site manager at Laley Resort. And in the proposal, you'll see we've designated him as your primary manager contact. But as the owner of the business, I will be very involved in this particular engagement. Honestly, Kevin's office is only about 13 miles away, and I was pretty encouraged by that. I punched the odometer and cleared it when I came by there this morning. And our office is in North Naples at exit 111, and I was somewhat surprised it only took me about 45 minutes to come down here this morning. It was me and 100,000 white Ford Econoline vans coming south on the interstate this morning. So in terms of our perception of you, my history here goes all the way back when I was the county's public safety director and the fire department subsequently merged into the Greater Naples. We were the entity responsible for establishing a fire department. And the reason for that was in the Othello Fire District, the only tax base we had was Port of the Islands, because the city of Everglades had a volunteer fire department and a truck that would operate sometimes. And other than that, the tax base of Ochapi, which was being acquired National Preserve, tax bases were plummeting. We had some federal payments in lieu of taxes, but the tax base here, director in mid-80s, then became the county manager after 1992. We landed the county helicopter on what originally was the airstrip out here to do an assessment of the damage. It was horrible here in Everglades City. Most people think Hurricane Andrew, Miami, Homestead. Well, it came straight across the state through the Everglades, exited just south of Everglades City, and the winds that were measured here were 120 miles an hour. They were 100 miles an hour up in East Naples. So my history at Port of the Islands is pretty deep. I am aware of the fact that you own and operate your own utility. I would tell you long term, I think that's an asset that you should consider swapping with the county. The same way I felt about that bridge in Marco Island. I don't think long term that you, aside from the pride of ownership that you have, that you really want to be in the water and the sewage treatment and the irrigation business in the middle of the Everglades from a permitting standpoint, from a cost of capital upgrades, and the environmental sort of risk associated with that. I talked to Mitch, I think his name was, who's the president of the operating company that you have. My impression of him is he's a real pro. And in the time that I spent talking to him, I just said, as I look out on the horizon, I said, I think there may be an incentive for you to do an asset transfer that would work to your advantage, either through some sort of subsidized rate basis or compensation to offset the cost to connect you to the end of the county's main lines now, which are generally up around the entrance to Collier Seminole State Park. And so, there would be some cost to connect you to the regional system. Longer term, the county intends to build a wastewater treatment plant at 6L Farms, which is owned by the Libmans. That's that 2,000-acre tomato and pepper farm that is between here and 951. I hired the county's utility director, and I took the opportunity to speak to him before coming down here today, just to get a sense of what their long-range plans are. My understanding is that the customer base here is somewhere around 700 customer units. That may be a variety of customers between the rate and the boat slips and the hotel and whatnot, but I think that would get the county's attention if you were going to try and merge or negotiate. I don't want to get ahead of the board, that's a policy decision. But I just think that your asset on the utility side of your equation here is something that you should explore and use to your advantage if the county would really like to have it.
We're on the same page as you.
Yeah. I know that there was a series of upgrades, but I'm just telling you, I think there might be an opportunity there, and I think we could help in that regard. In terms of the approach of our company, I think one of the benefits is all of the back of the house stuff is done here in Naples. So the accounting, the assessment role administration, the staff are here. They're not coming from Fort Myers or Fort Lauderdale or Tampa on their way to another CDD meeting somewhere else. And again, while we're small, over time we've had a good group of clients. The fee structure that I outlined for you there, we charge a base fee, and then other elements of our work, we charge dead cost. Over time, my average client, board member is a high net worth retiree who doesn't like to feel they're getting nickel and dime to death. I had looked at the issue with your website actually yesterday, and noticed that it was copyrighted, and immediately caused me a little concern that that might be an issue that we need to resolve. I would think that the actual domain name, but we operate through a vendor, which is Exploratech, based in Naples. They're both a design and very large hosting firm. And I pass that cost directly through to the client with no markup at all. So I'm not trying to make money on Xerox copies or envelopes or sheets of paper that become agendas or website hosting fees. We charge dead cost. and it has worked to our advantage really pretty well as a costing model. Mr. Carter has 13 years of experience in CDDs at both Lely Resort and also Key Marco. He is on site every day at Lely Resort because we have a very large staff there. We do not use outside subcontractors for landscape maintenance or security functions. They're employees of the district. So I'm managing their employees. The same is true at Pelican Bay, and the same is true at Pelican Marsh. So they don't have contractors that are cutting the grass or standing in the guard gates or maintaining street lights. We're using employees of the district. And so that's why we have pretty strong operation managers. And in this case, Kevin's experience and his proximity and the fact that we really do a pretty good job at Lely Resort is a plus. I think the second plus that we have is we're going to stay at home. I've been in town for some 40 odd years. Would like to work hard another 5 years and then have Kevin and my son who works in the business. He manages our Heritage Greens operation. He's done all the budgets for all of our districts this year. I hope to be able to hand this off sometime at the end of my renewed Pelican Bay contract, which would be about 5 years from now. The last 2 years would be at my option, and that would begin in October 1st. And so my plans are to work here and stay here. I'm not interested in districts in Fort Lauderdale or Sarasota, or for that matter, anything other than this one new client that we have that we're doing as a favor to a resident who actually lives in Tiburon. And all the national home builders are up in that area now looking for cheap land. But my point being, our key business is here in Naples. Our staff is here. The third and the final area, I think that as a general rule, we do good work and minimize mistakes, and especially in our accounting function. Our boards actually look at balance sheets and profit and loss statements, and so the quality of the financial statements that we generate is really, really good. Some of them use a very expensive outside auditor that is a Naples-based auditor that specializes in country club and master plan communities and taxing districts. And I did notice that the cost that you're paying is probably from one of the well-established firms on the East Coast. We use them in the case of Heritage Greens, but a lot of our work is heavily audited. And then, as you know, we submit those audits to the Auditor General in Tallahassee, and so districts have a very high accountability level with respect to accounting and finance matters and things like that. I'm glad you don't really have any debt. I did see some loan proceeds of some type, and I realize you've got a big capital project this year, continuing to convert some of your meters or replacing meters to go to automated meters. It's done. Completed. Okay. And so with that, I will tell you that Kevin's originally from Tennessee, in Memphis. I'm glad we're not in Memphis today, given the news, but his family's been down here for 20 years. 20 years. And he and I worked together for 13 years. I wanted you to be able to equate a name with a face and his proximity. He's meeting with a bunch of constituents up in Lely Resort in just a little bit. So I'm going to let him go. If you've got any particular questions about him, I'll get them to you. I can get him to answer them, but he's got to go make a bunch of high net worth retirees happy at Lely Resort this morning. So
Thank you for coming, Kevin.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well.
And then maybe in closing, I will tell you that Tony and I are acquainted. We have worked together for 20 some odd years at Pelican Marsh. Tony previously was an assistant county attorney, and so when I walked in to go to work for the county in 1979, county was very small, but Tony was, at that time, he had just left the state's attorney's office and was the assistant county attorney. And so while we're well acquainted, we've never been to dinner or to lunch together, But I work really well with his firm. But I would tell you, we work with two other general counsels on behalf of other clients.
I mentioned to him before the meeting today that you spoke very highly of him.
I forget the date, but Tony was the first person. I got there early, my first day to go to work with the county. And I ran into Tony coming down the hall, and he was brand new too, because he had just come as a prosecutor and had gone to work in the attorney's office. And then finally, on the civil engineering side, and I will also tell you that our approach to field management is a little different from what I perceive yours to be. In our case, we will handle the monthly inspections and track issues that you or residents are concerned of. Only in the event that you authorize field management services, then we charge on a project-specific basis and by the hour. So my fee does not anticipate $24,000 or separate field management services. I don't know what you're accustomed to, but I would just tell you we don't do that in any other case. In the case of Pelican Marsh, we have a major capital project this year. We are demolishing and replacing all three of their guard gates and all of their entry signage and hardscape and landscaping. And so in that case, the board has asked, and we use my son, Christopher. He is the designated field manager, and he charges for that project against that capital line item, but we don't charge separate fees unless you have a specific project or a need that you authorize in advance.
What do you charge an hour for field management? Do you have any idea?
I think that it's $75 an hour, but I'll confirm that.
Okay. So basically, in this quote then that you given, is it okay to go forward with this?
Oh, sure.
Okay. You got it down as $7,500 per month, which equates out to about $90,000. And you're saying you're not going to add in the field management numbers that Cal and Intramark are doing. Field management for Intramark is $12,000, and with Cal's company right now, it's $22,175. So there's a fair distance, but of course there'll still be costs because we will have some projects. The other one was would you talk to us about the billing for the utilities?
Yeah, I have not done any district billing. So when I spoke to Mitch yesterday, he works with 3 separate big batch utility billing processors for and on behalf of other clients. And he has arranged, depending on how things go with your discussion today, to put me in touch with 2 of them and potentially 3 in order to get a price to do your utility billing. When I asked him to give me just some rough idea, I said, because that's going to be a pass-through additional cost on my bid to these guys. He made sure that I understood that you're only billing every other month or 6 bills per year. And he gave me a number. He said it could be as little as 1,000 plus, postage and that sort of thing, but it might be 1,500. So you need to factor that in, that would be a pass-through cost in that respect as part of our bill. And the same is true for web hosting. If we have to create or design and then host a new service, I would use Exploratech as the design and host fee for that work. And
that'll be a couple $1,000.
The monthly hosting is much less than that.
No, I meant to create.
To create, yeah, maybe one-time cost on the design size. But when you get home today, if you look at the Pelican Marsh Community Development District, you will see they're very generic. They're not nearly as sophisticated. The one that you have is good. And I would want you to know that. But the ones that we have at Pelican Marsh, Heritage Greens, and Laley Resort meet the statutory requirements as a result of the spate of lawsuits. I presume you were in one. We were in 4 of them. And they are legally sufficient for the purposes of people who are visually impaired and meet the federal law as well.
So just for everyone's information, this is an add-on, which is, but, so we don't know exactly what that number is going to be, but it sounds like it might be pretty reasonable. Intramark is $18,000. We have been paying $26,550 plus postage and whatnot. So there would be I would project that we're going to have substantial savings there as well. Now, if we hire this outside group to do the billing, how would it fit into your group? I mean, how would you handle that?
According to Mitch, he reads the meters, and then he downloads the information into Cal's existing website, and that process would remain unchanged. His understanding is that within his scope, they will continue to do that.
But that company would just send you the money then? That would be basically your...
So similar to a lockbox type service, if you're condominium or homeowners association, you're mailing, then they will electronically disperse that money back into your account.
What about people who want information, say they're looking at their bills and questioning them, or that type of thing? Is that still something that you address, or who addresses that?
It would probably be both myself and your utility operator, because if they're questioning meter readings or consumption, and I'm going to say that happens pretty frequently, they need to have access to a link to either go back and speak to someone at the billing entity if they appears that late payments, or they've set it up for ACH or something like that. But if it's starting a new account or closing an old account and conceivably getting a deposit back, then they would need to run that through the district office in order to create a new application that would then go into the billing regimen, or get a deposit back if they have been charged a deposit.
Okay, yeah, I just looked at, we're not having a whole lot of, call them complaints if you want, or questions. We're not seeing very many. I mean, like a couple a month or something. A couple of
you may have a bunch of new people who are here, during or post-COVID, who are getting away from wherever, and so there may have been a lot of, closings and openings over the course of the last 2 years.
Sure.
I know that, there are future development plans for the north end of the community and that sort of thing, but that would need to be coordinated through the district office.
Sure.
I don't know whether you've been charging deposits historically on utility accounts. That was one of the questions that we had.
Terry, do you remember?
Yeah, there's a
deposit on water accounts?
Yeah.
You know how much?
Is it 125?
100? Yeah. Yeah, we have
That should be depicted on your financial statements.
Yeah.
On the liability side, if historically there should be an aggregate amount of money there that is your money that was on deposit in order to open that account.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you fellows have some questions?
Yeah, I got a question. You were saying that at these other developments, you supply a lot of the, you do the lawn service? You guys?
With their employees. So I'm hiring and managing and terminating and dealing with workers' comp issues with their employees at 3 of the 4 large communities that we have.
Oh, okay.
In the 4th, Heritage Greens, they're more similar to you, and we use outside landscape contractor. We use a separate contractor who does the holiday or Christmas decorations at the entrance to the community. And in that case, they no longer have security or guard gate services. We've gone to a virtual guard there, and they're very, very happy with that. And so in the case of Heritage Greens, there are no employees, they are contractors. So I do both depending on the community.
Okay. And now about this website that they own, is there any transfer, or you know what I mean?
So
you said our website's really good.
So I went and checked the agreements, and I think I misspoke. We have those website agreements for other communities, but I don't think we had that agreement with
Thank you for
POI.
that clarification, because I looked at all the agreements y'all sent me at the outset, I don't see one.
Yeah, so POI, we don't have that agreement with POI.
I was on the previous board and I was under the assumption that, well, I guess never assumed, right, but that it was ours. So it is our website, so there will be you will be able to transfer to him or whatever.
I believe so, but I'll need to look into that with our
It
hoster.
is copyrighted, and so, whether or not they're anticipating compensation for their copyrights rights, I'd need to get Tony's help on that.
All right, well, that's good.
It is a .com, not a .gov domain name, so there's always a default there, but, people by and large are .com oriented, not .gov oriented. You're eligible to use the .gov nomenclature on that web address if for some reason it becomes contentious.
Any other questions?
No, that was the biggest thing.
We spoke to engineers a little while ago. I work with 3 different civil engineers in town. Hol Montez at Lely Resort. I would tell you generally we're dealing with one of the partners there, Terry Cole. In Pelican Bay, I work with Agnoli, Barber, and Brundage, Naples-based civil engineering planning firm. They have been the engineer of record at Pelican Bay for many, many years. Have a very good relationship with them. Increasingly, I'm working with Johnson Engineering, who is the largest engineering firm in Fort Myers, but who have a very large presence in Naples. And I use Johnson Engineering at Pelican Marsh, and we're using them on a $7 million sidewalk project for construction engineering inspection services at Pelican Bay. So I have really great relationships with the 3 dominant civil engineering firms in the marketplace.
Now, one quick question. Sorry, go ahead.
Have you worked with Source Incorporated? Source? Are they an engineering firm? Yes. The name's not familiar, but I know there have been some mergers and acquisitions recently. So they, Waldrop Engineering did a lot of work for the Bridlewood community. Source, I know the old Wilson Miller firm was acquired by a national firm, and so there have been some mergers and acquisitions. Source is not a name I'm familiar with unless they were called something else last year.
I remember what it was I wanted to ask. In your other CDDs that you is the engineer typically at all the board meetings?
It depends on the client.
Okay.
The engineer has never been to a meeting at Heritage Greens, and I replaced Hal's firm there following Hurricane Irma. And so we've completed 5, we're in our 6th year there, and they've never been to a meeting. When I need him, I call him, or we meet at their office. At Pelican Marsh, he comes to every meeting and seldom says anything. But they like having him there in the event that somebody has a drainage-related issue or concern or something pertaining to an easement or part of the district's right-of-way. It's a feel-good thing for them. And the same is true at Pelican Bay. He only comes when it's necessary. And so it depends on the client.
And we should be able to look at your budgets for those communities and see what it's actually costing them to have them do that, right?
Yeah, again, keep in mind that at Pelican Marsh, that includes Tiburon, they're 2 different communities, but within the same district. And also at Pelican Bay, like I'm replacing the sidewalks at Pelican Bay. It's a $7 million project. And so, the engineering costs are going to be a little artificially high. I'm also responsible to re-nourish the beach there and to dredge Clam Pass. And so I spend a lot of money on coastal engineers. So take a look at it, but don't read too much into that, because in some other cases, we've got major capital projects underway that have a lot of engineering tied to them.
And you also talked about virtual guards.
Mm-hmm.
Does that just mean you have an arm that comes down long enough for a picture to be taken?
It depends again on the client. We have 2 different vendors. The one that I like is called Invera. Very good presence in Southwest Florida. Their call center is in Broward County. But depending on what you want, there's a kiosk there that has a driver's license strip reader. And in 2 cases, we're now using also, once that car is registered, we have licensed tag readers that are reading the tag on the back of the car as it approaches the gate. And if they have previously been registered by a member of the community, they need not go to the kiosk again and swipe their driver's license. The license plate reader will automatically read that tag number and open the gate and let them in. In some cases, we're still, they want them to talk to a warm body at the call center. The other vendor is Ramco that we're using, and we're doing that at 3 different places currently.
Well, if we did it here, we'd have 3 different gates,
Yeah.
So cost becomes a problem for us, but I know that some of the public have asked about this, and we're just.
Pelican Marsh,
certainly gonna look into it.
I have their employees standing in guard gates, one of them 24 hours a day, the others 18 hours a day, and it's a brutal price point in the marketplace to find labor. It's brutal.
Any other questions?
Do you recommend gating the community? Would you recommend gating our community?
I would want to sit down and get a sense of where the primary access points are. Like I know historically when I've been over to the marina, the main drag is not currently the north-south road there is not gated. I don't know whether any of the adjacent communities have gates, but if you're going to put a gate in there, I think it does add value. I'm not a proponent at the moment of trying to staff it with traditional guards or roving patrols or anything like that because the costs are horrible. You have no idea.
We just had a few thefts here lately, like a boat trailer was just recently gone, and we were just thinking along the lines of something to drop down long enough just to get pictures of the vehicles coming in and out.
These next generation license tag reading cameras are really good.
How expensive do you suppose that would be? I mean, just ballpark up, one unit.
Enviro likes to lease you their stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, I think we spent $7,500 for the system and the kiosk interface at the Heritage Greens community. They have the best overall installation there. And from a practical standpoint, it's a dusk to dawn. There's so many Amazon trucks and people who are going to the semi-public golf course in there that I recommended to them, let's just leave these gates open during the day. But when the sun goes down, if you want to close them, then let's go to the Enviro guard route, and they're very happy with that.
So you're talking like $7,500 to set it up and then a subscription fee basically.
Yeah, monthly sort of management cost. I don't want to just stand here and wing it today, but I can get you some more information.
Great. Yeah.
We use it there. We use it at another community that's a master homeowners client of ours at Sereno Grove. And we also do it at a very high-end Tiburon community called Marsala. They're all using virtual guard systems. 2 are with Enviro, and the other one is with Ramco. Don't know a lot about them. I'm impressed with Enviro.
Perfect. Neither one of you? Anything else? Okay, anybody from the public? Lisa?
I have a question. Lisa Sater, 166 Sunset. Is there a reason why we have to do every other month? I mean, could we do quarterly billing for water? I mean, and just do it 4 times a year?
Well, it just depends on whether or not there's going to be a substantial cost savings to do that. I mean, if it's just envelopes and whatever, but if you did one less billing, does that mean that they're going to charge us 1/3 less? I would guess not.
I don't know. I guess I was just asking because I know where I used to live, we got just charged quarterly, and
I think from the board's perspective, one of the analysis you may want to ask your manager to do is to evaluate the cash flow. Because you have certain costs and expenses that are recurring on a monthly basis. If you do it quarterly, you may end up being a bit behind. I don't know, that's a cash flow analysis.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a stretch on a utility operation. I know you're subsidizing your rates with non-ad valorem assessment because we looked at that on background, and I think the shock value too, even with subsidized rates of going quarterly, would probably work against you from a customer experience standpoint.
I think there's some safety in having the meter readings at least every couple months also.
True.
Quarterly, if there's an issue, we pick that up and read the meter.
Sure. Anyone else have any questions?
Kathy Oswald, I didn't catch the name of your company.
DMG, the
DMG.
Rural Management Group.
Thank you.
Our website is not up to date, but it should be on the weekend because we redesigned it. I don't care about things like that, but my son and the kids in the office live in that world. And Rural Management Group, DMG.
Thank you.
Ron? Got something?
I was just thinking, having your meters read and billing could be two separate, different things.
It's one, Ron Western.
Yes, Ron Western case drive.
Could be, yeah.
It could be separate, so you could still have the meter readings if there were a problem, they could catch that, but bill quarterly.
I think it's all something that we should look into. We gotta get the pros and cons.
The meters let you know if there's an unusual spike.
Actually, they don't.
I thought they did. I thought that was part of the deal. No? I thought they.
Just like when they just flooded over the conservation land, there's no bell or whistle that goes off.
Well, with that, let me, I've been at this a long time, talking about local government. And so I don't say this just to be cute. Thank you for what you do. The only question I really had, at least when she contacted me, I said, is there any personal animosity on the board? And she said no, but over time, she asked me, why do you ask that? I said, just because it just kind of sucks the life out of everybody. And so I understand that either all of you are brand new, or this may be, the first time in a long time that you're back on the board. And we appreciate the people that we work for. And I would tell you, by and large, on the CDD side, there's no personal animosity amongst the board. I do have 2 condominium clients, and it's just kind of a brutal business to be in because you're enforcing rules and, people fighting over the temperature of the hot tub, and life's too short. So thanks for what you do. This is a very unique community.
We have had, up until this point, we have had some drama, but not with this new board. What else? Go ahead, Tony.
Just a question, maybe, but just generally, I can't recall the next billing cycle. Bills will be
End of February.
End of February, so it'll be after the next board meeting, after the termination of Premier, and so the new manager would need to come on board quickly with that.
Or accelerate the billing. Doesn't have to be done the last week.
I know the board.
Early next week, I will follow up with Mitch because I promised to when he and I spoke earlier this week, because he wanted me to get back in touch with him after today, and he has several billing services that he works with on behalf of other clients, and so I'll be a little bit better informed by this time next week.
A lot of us have auto pay. I don't know how that transfers over. I mean, start fresh. I mean, it's like I never even look at I look at the bill, but I don't.
Who's your banking relationship with? Who's the district's bank?
Valley something.
I think it's Valley Bank.
Valley Bank.
I have to double check that.
Oh, here's one other question, quick. If and we want to decide today, about a management company, are you comfortable with being able to get us up and running?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. We just lost a big homeowners association at the Villages of Monterey.
Okay.
And it was a case where the board changed at the annual meeting, and there's a new group there, and there's a particular firm that is doing the majority of the sub-associations. My client was the master, and this other firm has 3 of the neighborhood associations in there, and they just want to go in a different direction. So we have the capacity for another client, and we have the experience, in particular on local CDDs. I want to follow up on the banking thing. Tony's firm used to represent the clerk of the circuit court here, who serves as the chief fiscal officer. Okay, well, we sort of followed Collier County's lead on banking services. And they most recently have been with, it was first Florida Integrity Bank. They have been acquired by now a larger bank. And with the county's banking agreement is still with them. And there's some benefits to doing that as a local unit of government. And we might want to explore that too.
Yeah, I think what Dale's referencing is that the district can piggyback on the contract that the court negotiated with the banks.
Well, and that's
And
the
there
other.
was a very favorable term.
Yeah, the difference being, that they got $1 billion in the bank, and you guys probably have 6 million or something like that. But
We will.
it helps.
Terry knows.
4.6 right now, and we're bringing in another 1 or 2, depending on when this case gets going. But one other question or comment was, obviously, we haven't been having good interactions with the county. We want to get more, trying to use some of their engineering, some of their legal, some of that stuff, and we haven't done a great job of it so far, and that's the direction we're trying to move. And I'm suspecting that with your previous experience, you may be able to help stream that line.
Yeah, my wife and I were instrumental in establishing First Baptist Academy, the private school in Naples, and their football team is the state champion this year, only the 3rd time in 100 years, Southwest Florida school is the state champ. So I was at the county commission meeting Tuesday because they were recognizing the team, and it was nice to see some old faces. I hired the county's transportation engineering director. I hired both of the current deputy county managers, who are the number 2 people in county government. I'm very well acquainted with the county manager, who's female, and I think is going to do a great job. But I've been gone for 22 years, but I've still got some friends down there.
Great.
I have a couple more questions. Go for it. We have a contact right now with the county, Ed Sim, he's one of the deputy managers.
Finn, yeah.
Okay.
He was my budget director, and he's now the number 2 guy. He and Dan Rodriguez are the 2 deputies.
Is that the right desk to be working with when we talk about some of these things?
Well, what's the issue?
Like Steve, Mr. McNamee had said, we were talking about combining or getting maybe some help with engineering or roads or whatever.
Your roads are owned by the district or the private community in which they're in. They're not county roads. I don't think they would want them. And so, I mean, we're not going to be able to convey your roads to the county just because their land development code no longer allows that. So if you have specific drainage or roadway issues, I think you're going to be stuck with those. If you have, Tony will tell you this if he hadn't already, the South Florida Water Management District's permit system is a mess. And the conversion process from construction permits to maintenance and operating permits is a mess. And I don't know that they would play much of a role in that. I wish I had a better answer for you, but if you've got specific road, street lighting, or drainage issues, they're going to want you as a local unit of government. They're not going to give you, pro bono or gratis type engineering services. You're going to have to contract for that. That's at least my experience with my other clients. Did I answer your question?
Yes. One more grant, FEMA grants. We're going to be turning those over from our current manager to our new manager. We are
Kevin, who was here with me, has a very good experience. He and my other Kevin is a guy named John Vanover. And in the case of Hurricane Irma, we collected, I think it was $1.2 million for Pelican Marsh. Laley Resort doesn't have near the canopy tree problem that they had at Pelican Marsh, but those 2 guys are pretty adept at the FEMA process. I will tell you, it's arduous. I don't know what your costs have been most recently. We did come in after the former manager at Heritage Greens and found out that they had not properly filed, but we did get them some money at Heritage Greens too. Got to be patient.
We're between $1 and $2 million. We have generators, roads, wash down.
Generators at your plant?
Yes.
Okay.
Out in the field where our well, we lost a big generator with the flood.
Okay.
We had lift stations, pumping stations that went down with the flood. We had some expenses.
One other thing that we've got going is they're doing all that water changing, you know, up north here, changing the flows and whatnot.
In the peak year?
Yeah, and we didn't try to get any mitigation money for how things are changing out there. Our wells are like out 1.5 miles, and our pipes are underwater now and whatnot. So we're gonna, Mr. Truckee is working on trying to go back and see if we can't hook into some of that flood or some of that mitigation money.
Yeah, I didn't realize your well field was that far north, but it makes sense.
In the middle of the Everglades.
Yeah, it's 1.5 miles basically out.
Okay.
You know, you're used to well fields being a long ways away.
Yeah.
Pelican Bay.
Yeah, Pelican Bay's well fields are at the north end of Livingston Road. So
I see the table.
Okay.
For Pelican Rock.
I think we.
Pelican Bay, I mean, excuse me.
Thank you for your time.
Yes.
And
Well, yeah,
I think we.
yeah, I think if the board's inclined to want to make a decision, they need to make a decision, you know, as to which management firm to proceed with it. The board can then make a motion to negotiate with whatever firm you all want to recommend and to come back with the contract at the next board meeting. And that firm also would need to be ready to have resolutions ready for all the banking relationships, to change over signatures and items like that, at least for the interim, maintain, you know, that's a question for your new manager. Do you want to maintain the current banking relationship now to give you time for transition over? But at the least, you'll need to have your resolutions. Because then you'll have a new.
is this your normal meeting too?
No.
No.
Okay. What day of the week?
Third Friday of each month.
Okay, so typically it would have been last Friday.
We did, yes.
Okay.
And yeah, last night, that was continued to today to address it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't need to stay for your deliberations, but I would hope to hear from Tony, you know, as early as today or
Numbers back
Monday.
Today. We're here today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce her. Thank you.
Here now.
Well, let's just keep moving right along with this line then, you know, just cost-wise, Intramark is at $98,000, that's $68,000 district management, field services $12,000, utility bills $18,000. With them revisiting this after 3 months to see whether or not their hours are in line, so it's not completely set in stone. DMG is basically $90,000 for district management, but basically what he's saying is we're not going to have to pay for this field services to the level that we are right now, and the billing isn't included in there, but I'm going to guess, you know, if Intramark can get it done for $18,000, I'm going to guess that a private firm can do it for us for $18,000 as well. So it'll be a substantial savings from what we're paying right now. But thoughts?
I'm just happy that everything he does is with Naples people. That really helps sell it for me. I mean,
I really like
even
it
more so than the money.
I really like his county connections as well.
Yeah. But everything's in Naples, almost everything. Yeah, Naples, so. He's got Naples Engineering there, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
2 other outfits. So there's not much of a decision, is there?
I don't think so, but that's just me. What do you fellas think? Do you want to talk more about anything? Anybody else have any input on this that they want us to consider?
He sounds learned. I
mean, I personally was impressed with him.
Thank you for that comment.
I agree with her. She knows the stuff, this guy, he's from our community.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's, this Kevin's.
That's Joe Levy.
I'm not thrilled with the water management thing going over to the county, but.
It's not
you know
done.
what-
Yeah.
But you
It's
know
not
what
done.
my views
Yep.
are on that.
It's not done.
I'll be dead by that time. Yeah.
But besides that,
Okay,
But
so.
yeah, Kevin's only 13 miles away. I mean, his office must be right in Lily or something, so.
So can someone give us a motion?
I think the appropriate motion would be, Mr. Chairman, if I may, would be to award the district management services agreement to Durrell Management Group, DMG, and authorize the chairman to negotiate the terms of the agreement and compensation and bring it back at the next board meeting, along with necessary documents to retain them as district manager.
Well said.
You want to make that a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
You have a second yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very encouraged. I think this was.
So it doesn't happen officially till the next meeting, but he can start progressing, I mean, with this website and all that stuff that we've got to do.
I think this conversation Mr. McNee and I can have with Mr. Doral is that even award this, finalize the terms of the agreement, it should be relatively simple, because the standard form
We
agreement.
may have to have some overlap.
Correct, and then he can, maybe ask him if he can, as part of that, initiate the initial transition conversations before that meeting. And I'm sure Neil will be, I can't speak for him, but I'm sure he'll be amenable to that. So I think it helps him too, to get up and running.
I agree. All right. What else, does anybody want to?
Mr. McNamee,
Yes, sir.
this is Justin
Go ahead.
Faircloth. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity for consideration of our firm. If things don't work out with DMG, you know where to find me.
It's Justin.
Absolutely, Justin, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. That's all right.
We signed it the same day.
From my perspective, nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
So do we want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Sure. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. You got a new manager coming.
All right.
One